Hello.
Hi, I'm Lexi or Alexandra Giovanoli.
And I'm Kara Fukushima, and we are Vista Consulting, and we're here to present to you today the Board of Directors of Blackstone, the owners of SeaWorld, on the issue of orca captivity because you called us here to talk about it. So when Blackfish aired on CNN, it did a poll that asked, did watching this film change your perception of SeaWorld? And out of 11,000 votes, 86% of them said that it did change their perception. So that's just like a little snippet into this issue. So you asked us to talk to you about the perceived issues at hand, and you stressed that the ethical issues were most important, but we want to tell you that we found issues with ethically, legally, and financially. And you asked us that if we found issues with orca captivity, to present to you a solution that works on all three of those counts. So that's what we're here to do. So our proposed solution will work on all three of those counts, but due to the severity, I suppose, of the issues, we would like to say that it's a dramatic change in the way that SeaWorld operates. So I would like to just present to you like 2 bullet points before we get into the presentation further, so that you know, like, you're not surprised. So our solution initially includes first discontinuing of the live orca shows, because we believe that it's an unsustainable business model and it's necessary to put an end to orca captivity. The second aspect of our solution is rebranding with IBECC simulation, which we feel the public will positively take to, and it'll also propel you in the positive direction and let you be like leaders in this industry. So the initial impression that SeaWorld seeks to provide the public looks something like this. You might imagine a trainer feeding some dolphins, and you stress the values of entertainment, education, and conservation. However, contrary to what you aim to be about, a new public perception has been forming. For example, after the passing of the trainer Don Bradshaw from SeaWorld, due to an incident with an orca, there has been a negative brand image circulating currently. Additionally, pictures such as this have been going around on the internet, which focus on the size of your orcas, the tanks that your orcas live in currently. And as you can see by the size of the orca in the tank does not look much larger than them. So that's causing some public unease. Pictures like this, when you search SeaWorld in Google, also come up, and we've circled it so you can see that it's an injury of the jaw of the whale Nakai, and it happened either through an altercation between this whale and another whale or through scraping of the bars of the tank. So however this injury occurred, it is an issue and it would not have occurred in the wild. So we know this is not how you would like to be perceived going along with your guiding principles. So the first principle that we'll talk is your accountability. So you recognize that your reputation is always on the line. And currently the public is perceiving you to be a little bit ethically questionable. So our solution will allow you to lead in a more positive direction. Additionally, integrity, you recognize that your leadership demands responsibility. As you are one of the world's foremost zoological organizations, you do set the tone at the top. So considering that your leadership demands responsibility, although you are not in compliance with the law, you want to do more than the law requires. So that's what we seek our solution to do. And then third is entrepreneurship. So you seek opportunities, creative opportunities that are often overlooked by others, and we feel that our solution will provide you with this opportunity. So before we move on, and as Chantal talks about the ethical issue, I would like to just stress to you your code of conduct and ethics, because this is what you are already committed to. So your code of conduct specifically states that if you are faced with a problem, that you should ask yourself, does it seem unethical or improper? So our issue today is the issue with orca captivity that SeaWorld currently has. So considering this is what you're committed to, you can ask yourself throughout this presentation whether or not it seems unethical or improper. And additionally, it says that when you have this problem, that you can use common sense, but also if something seems unethical or improper, that it probably is. Now this is what was stated in your code of conduct, so this is just something that we would like you to keep in mind because it is something that you are currently saying that you're committed to. So now Chantal will speak on it.
Thanks, Karen. Hi, so my name's Chantal and I'm here to speak about the ethical issues of orca captivity. So from the time orcas were first being held in captivity, there was not that much information known or research done on them to conclude that it was unethical to keep them in captivity. However, throughout their years spent kept in captivity, researchers have been able to understand that orcas are so highly intelligent and so sophisticated that their fundamental nature is completely incompatible with captivity. So the progressive scientists that exclusively study orcas have been currently and consistently supporting the idea that orcas have characteristics so similar to human beings that they should be thought of as non-human persons. So what this means is orcas should be not regarded as property, but instead regarded as a who and not a what. So to explain what I mean by a who and not a what, I'm going to speak about three main factors. The first is that orcas are highly intelligent. The second is that in order to thrive, orcas need lifelong social bonds and additionally complex social networks. And third, orcas are capable of feeling emotional pain. So the first point I'm going to speak about is that orcas are highly intelligent. Orcas have a brain size extremely large relative to their body size. And additionally, as you can see on this photo, the outer portion of their brain is extremely wrinkled, which shows complexity. And science says that there are two indicators of intelligence. The first is brain volume, and the second is brain convolution, and orcas score highly on both of these criteria. So additionally, due to their extremely high intelligence, orcas need to be able to exercise control over their own lives. They're completely self-aware, they're aware of their own bodies, their body parts, and also how their body parts correspond to those of human beings, which is how they're able to mimic actions shown to them by human beings. And additionally, to show their intelligence, there has been an experiment called the mirror recognition test, where it was shown that orcas and dolphins are able to recognize themselves in a mirror. So where other animals, like a dog for example, may look in a mirror and see that there's something there, maybe they know it's another dog, orcas are able to understand that it's themselves that they're looking at, and that shows their intelligence. So the second point I'm going to speak about is that in order to thrive, orcas need lifelong social bonds. So the lifelong social bonds and complex social networks that orcas need to thrive is only accessible to them in the wild. Each orca exists within their own specific community, which has a distinct dialect, culture, and characteristics which set it apart from other communities. So with that being said, one orca cannot just be taken from one community and dropped into another community and expected to thrive. So as you know, there was an incident that took place in SeaWorld where one orca from Icelandic waters was put into a tank with one orca from waters from the Pacific Ocean. They had an altercation which ended in the death of one of the whales. However, there has been no reported incidents of something like this happening in the wild, because in the wild, they have such a large proximity to swimming that they would not have this type of high-stress environment. They're able to remove themselves from situations that they deem too stressful or dangerous. So the third point I'm going to speak about to show the intelligence, the third point I'm going to speak about to show that orcas should be classified as a who and not a what is that they're capable of feeling emotional pain. So due to their high intelligence and sophistication, orcas are able to realize the situation that they are in and think and reflect on their emotions and situation. They're capable of feeling hopelessness and despair, and with incidents that happened to them in the past, they're able to reflect on these incidents and suffer emotionally and physically from them. And much like human beings, like for example, if a human being had a child taken away from it, this human being is going to experience emotional pain. The same kind of emotional pain is experienced when an orca is taken away from its family. So to bring this back to ethics, there are two widely accepted fundamental ethical principles. The first is do no harm, and the second is treat others appropriately. And while some people may say that orcas are not being treated outrightly with harm in captivity, the fact that they cannot flourish, grow, and develop shows that they are not being treated appropriately. So what do orcas need to be able to thrive? Orcas are adapted to moving, hunting, diving, and foraging. They need a varied physical environment and additionally enough space to remove themselves from situations if they need to. So in the wild, orcas can swim up to 100 miles a day and dive depths from 100 to 200 meters. However, in captivity, they're confined to a space that's only 48 feet in length, which is only twice the size of their own bodies. And additionally, the tanks that they're confined to are only 12 feet deep, which is not even half the length of their own bodies. And so also, in order to replicate the amount of space that they would be able to swim in the wild, orcas will have to circle their tank 1,900 times. So I've been speaking about thrive. What does it mean to thrive? To make steady progress, prosper, grow vigorously, and flourish. And with the points that I've spoken about and the progressive scientists and the research that they put out on orcas, it can be concluded that orcas are not able to thrive in captivity. It's not only with SeaWorld, but any aquarium that seeks to house orcas, it's completely impossible to recreate the natural environment that orcas need to be able to thrive. And additionally, just because human beings are capable of keeping orcas in captivity, it doesn't make it an ethically sound thing to do. And we know that you want to do more than what the law requires, so I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Lexi, who's going to speak about the legal aspects of keeping orcas in captivity.
Thank you, Chantel. Hello, everyone. I'm Lexi, and I'm going to be talking about the legal aspects of this issue. So, since SeaWorld parks have opened in the 1970s, there actually have been 75 incidences between orcas and humans at SeaWorld parks. Now, granted, these range from a very vast amount. So it could be a orca bumping the hip of a trainer during practice or something along those lines, to the death of Don Branshaw that we have previously talked about. And we believe, as Chantal has mentioned, that progressive scientists have found that this is actually due to the high-stress environment of captivity, not necessarily to their normal behavior, which is why this is becoming an issue. And as you know, in 2010, OSHA actually brought a violation against SeaWorld, saying that they were creating a very unsafe work environment for their employees. This caused possible drowning hazards, things along those lines, to the point where they actually had orca trainers being held out of the tank. They're not allowed to go into the water, which SeaWorld calls water work, as you would probably know. And this is actually, they have to stay out of the water or have a protected barrier between them and the orcas. And currently there have not been any other options that have been found to be as safe for trainers than keeping a major barrier between them and the orcas currently. Now, as you can see, there's quite a legal trend. Since the the violations in 2010, there has been a clear legal trend moving forward, and this is why we believe this is an unsustainable business model. In 2011, PETA actually brought a lawsuit against SeaWorld, saying that SeaWorld was holding the 5 wild-caught original orcas, the ones that created the beginning of the captive breeding, and this actually violates their constitutional rights that they're being held in captivity against their will, even though they should be out in the ocean. Then in 2013, the Non-Human Rights Project actually is an organization that fights for the legal rights of non-human persons, as we previously mentioned. This includes chimpanzees as well as elephants, as well as orcas and dolphins. And in 2013, they filed 3 lawsuits on behalf of 4 chimpanzees. Now, granted, I know you're thinking, why does this connect? But this this organization is planning on continuing. Both of these have actually been denied and didn't go through, but Non-Human Rights Project decides to continually come back. They're planning on doing another lawsuit in the next year, and actually they're not going to stop. This is going to be a continual problem. As you can see, it's a legal trend that needs to be considered. And shifting ahead, so in other countries currently, they're actually banning the captivity of orcas for entertainment purposes. Specifically in 1990, UK actually increased their standards for captivity, which actually released the last 3 dolphins that they had in captivity. Their standards are so high that no other orcas or dolphins are held in captivity at this point. Then in 2005, Costa Rica actually outlawed captivity of orcas and dolphins, all with the same concept. Then, more recently, in 2013, actually, India declared that cetaceans, which are dolphins, whales, orcas, to be non-human persons officially, and that they're forbidden to be able to be held in captivity or in any form of zoological experience. And then, most recently, in 2014, California actually proposed a bill to end the captivity of orcas in the state of California for entertainment purposes. Now, granted, yes, this bill has been suspended due to finding more research, but it's coming back next year. It's something that we need to consider because it could cause a major issue to our bottom line for our San Diego park. Now, granted, I talked about those two. Those are the main state countries, but there are many other countries that have followed suit as well. Hungary, Greece, Bolivia, Chile, Croatia, Cyprus, and many more have actually done the same thing. And even some states have come up with different laws regarding the captivity of dolphins and orcas. So now that I have talked about the legal aspects of this, I'm going to pass it over to Kara to talk about the financial aspects. Thank you.
I will now speak about the financial issue. So as we've been mentioning about this unsustainable business model, I'd just like to give a quick summary or a few points so that you understand a little bit more like what we're talking about. So first, as Chantal mentioned, there has been progressive scientists whose new research has been leading us to believe that orcas cannot thrive in captivity. So we do understand that we would not have all this knowledge about orcas if they were not in captivity, and we're not going to deny that. What we're saying is that with this new research, it's important to move forward and change them in. As Lexi also mentioned, other countries are having public policies that are going against captivity, further showing that it is an unsustainable business model with the trends continuing in this direction. And as I will speak about shortly, there are demographic and attitudinal shifts within the public. So, it's an unsustainable business model. And with the new research found by progressive scientists, when you receive new information as a progressive society, we are obligated to adjust to this information. So we didn't know all of this about orcas way back, but now that we do, as a progressive society, that's the signature. We change to this new information that we are provided with. So when Blackfish premiered on CNN, it aired to 471,000 viewers in the age 18 to 37 age bracket. And this is important because these are your primary customers. These are who will be making vacation plans and choosing to either go to SeaWorld or not go to SeaWorld. And considering the polls that have been done, there have been 86% of them saying that Blackfish changed their perception of SeaWorld, and also that they would not want to attend knowing what they know now. So these are a couple tweets. You may not know who Bryce Brown is, who's a football player, or Latika Burke, who is a political reporter in Europe, but it's not necessarily their names that matter, but just the fact that these people have more Twitter followers than the average user. It means that their tweets trend, that their voice is being heard, that the public recognizes this, they are influenced by these tweets, and it's not just them on social media, but it's others as well. So that comes to like shifting public opinion. So besides from just Twitter and social media pulling this in this direction, also celebrities are speaking out, for example, Kobe Calais and even Russell Brand. But it's not just a one-way street where celebrities are influencing the public on their views, but it's also the public influencing them. For example, celebrities have canceled their shows at SeaWorld due to the feeling that there has been public pressure to do so. The public is speaking out and holding campaigns of them not to participate in shows at SeaWorld because of their own views. So if you want to take a look at some numbers, there has been a 35% net income decrease. So it went from just over $77 million to just a little over $50 million in 1 year. And additionally, there was a 4.1% attendance decline. So this is attributed to approximately 1 million people. And this could be attributed to perhaps the film Blackfish, perhaps increase in ticket prices, or perhaps in even bad weather as was reported. But whatever the case, like there's obviously an issue here and nobody wants to see their attendance or net income decrease. So as when Lexi talks about our proposed solution, which talks about a lot IMAX simulation, we want to explain to you why we chose this solution. So for example, when Universal Studios opened the ride Transformers, which is a simulated ride, in May of 2012, they attribute that opening of this simulated ride to a 15% attendance increase for that year. So that proves that the public is very positively receptive to this. Additionally, the public is very positively receptive to technology. And when it opened in May, it resulted in net operating cash flow increase compared to that third quarter in comparison to, so this opened in 2012, in comparison to net operating cash flow of 2011, it resulted in $27 million increase. So that's like a large number. So Lexi will speak about what we propose you to do.
Thank you, Kara. So now that you've heard all of the aspects of this issue that we consider very important, we're going to talk about what we think you should do as a company. So, as Kara previously mentioned, we think the first thing that needs to be done is the discontinuing of live Orca shows. Now, this would lead to the ending of captive breeding. You'd be a leader by ending the cycle because no other company has done this yet. They've not taken the steps. And as we've mentioned previously, the public is really pushing for this. They don't think that this is maybe the best option. They see it being a little ethically questionable, and it makes the most sense to get ahead of this, be the leader, be seen as the ones making the change, making the difference, and actually listening to the public and what they think about this topic. It would improve your company reputation because currently SeaWorld is having some issues with public perception, as we previously mentioned, and it would actually, in our opinion, bring a positive public perception. They'd actually be more interested in coming to SeaWorld because you guys are the ones changing. So the first question I'm sure everyone's asking is, what are we going to do about the orcas? So there have been discussions about ocean sanctuaries. The progressive scientists that Chantal has previously mentioned have come up with possible options for phasing out the captivity of these orcas. Obviously, no plans have been definitely decided. You would be the first ones to make this decision and make this plan, but it makes the most sense for what we plan on doing, and you'd be seen as leaders, as your company has previously mentioned that you want to do. Rebranding. So this would actually bring a richer educational experience because you would be able to use simulations to explain more detailed information about orcas as opposed to having them do a show. You could explain normal habits, normal tendencies. You could actually show them what goes on during the wild in these shows, as well as removing the fact of, unnatural behavior such as flapping their fin at the audience, which actually in the wild is considered as aggression and not considered the fun, happy reasoning that is used in the park. And actually Universal Studios, as Kara mentioned, is actually very successful with this. Their last 4 rides that they've opened have been 3D simulation, and they've done very, very well. As she mentioned, for Transformers, they actually had a 15% increase in their attendance just that year. So when we talk about an interactive IMAX experience, this is sort of an idea of what we're planning on talking about. So this would include a huge screen, but the audience would actually be up close and personal, which we think is actually the most beneficial for the current trend in the generation right now. They're very tech savvy, they're on their iPads, they love simulations, things along those lines, as you can see from Universal Studios Success, which is your main competitor. So as I said, this is similar to, actually this is California Adventure Soaring Over California, which is in Disney and a very popular ride at their park. So it would be similar to this along those lines, where you would get your audience up close and personal to the screen and actually being able to immerse them into what they're seeing on the screen, which would actually, in our opinion, bring a richer experience, even though yes, they're not physically seeing the whales in person, but they're actually getting an experience of them in the wild and what actually happens. So obviously, as a company, we can give you the facts and give you the information, but you will have to ultimately make the decision. Now, granted, you want to be leaders, you want to get ahead of trends and make decisions that other people, or take advantage of opportunities that other people have not done currently. And we think as a company, this makes the most sense that our solution actually provides that for you as a company to take hold of this opportunity that no other company has previously done. So thank you, and we will be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I did pick up, if I can read off the questions.
Yeah, of course.
I did not pick up whether or not you know the loss of income in discontinuing the live orca shows and what percent that is of our overall revenue in terms of what if surveys said the orcas are as a draw. You've told us that a couple 100,000 people saw a video who may or may not be customers of SeaWorld. 87% or whatever didn't agree that we were right to do what we're doing. But I'm curious about what the facts are about how the orcas draw attendance to us and what kind of income that show brings to us. Do you know that?
I think it's actually very difficult to put a definite number on that because
And what is like attracting them to come to SeaWorld?
But actually another aquarium actually, Monterey Bay Aquarium, discontinued their whale shows, and they actually had a poll of people asking if they would still come to the park or come to the aquarium if the ride or the show was canceled, and they actually had a very high answer saying that yes, they would still come, and actually that they were very much for the decision to get rid of the whale shows.
Monterey Bay Aquarium currently operates very successfully without any.
What place is that?
Monterey Bay Aquarium.
Any other questions, Tim?
Yes. So you said that orcas are not, oh no, let me back up. What about dolphins? Do we still have dolphins?
Yes.
Yes.
What, does your proposal include anything about dolphins?
Yes. Well, orcas are actually the largest type of dolphin. So when we say orca, that's inclusive of like the bottlenose dolphins or the regular dolphins.
So every marine mammal that we have in our inventory.
Actually, no. We're only speaking about orcas and dolphins because they have high intelligence and high sophistication that the progressive scientists have found to differentiate them from other marine mammals that also you have or that exist.
What, like seals or?
Seals, there's a walrus, fish.
And they are, you said orcas, and I presume you mean dolphins as well, are not compatible with captivity.
Correct.
Seals are, walruses are, sea lions are.
Well, there's never been a case made that a walrus has a sense of self and a walrus or a seal has the type of like intellectual capacity or sophistication that would make their fundamental nature incompatible with captivity. So in captivity, orcas and dolphins do not have the stimulation, the family bonds, like they do not have like what they need in order to thrive. Thank you.
So they can thrive in captivity.
No, they can't.
No.
Oh, excuse me,
Sea
sorry.
lions. I mean, for example, there are people, you look at a lion in a cage.
Sure.
Say, a lion belongs in the jungle.
Right.
It doesn't belong in a cage. You see where I'm going?
Oh,
with it?
completely. But with the progressive research and this, what the scientists have been continuously supporting is that there's a specific amount of species of animals, orcas, whales, you spoke about, elephants and
primates,
chimpanzees,
among
that
others,
have that type of capacity that makes their nature incompatible with captivity.
Okay.
You talk about progressive science, but I'm having trouble understanding how we can prove that they're capable of feeling pain. I understood and I appreciate the diagrams that you gave us about brain size and all of that, but I'm unclear how you know they can feel pain.
Well, I'm not a researcher, but
No, you made the claim that they could.
Yes.
And so I didn't get the backup of that.
Well, a lot of it, of course, is going to be on assumption. However, there are some examples that we can elaborate on, I suppose, to like demonstrate emotional pain. For example, when a mother lost her calf, and you know how usually the calf swims under the mother, for a long time that mother whale like swam with this space below where her calf used to be. So although some animals are able to feel pain in the moment, so like something happens to you in the moment, you feel the pain, but orcas and dolphins are able to think about the past and remember that this happened, and that sort of emotional pain, of course you can't like say like they are definitely in pain, but we can make assumptions in a sense to say that they are in pain and that they think about these things, that they're able to think about past events.
A lot of that has to do with their behaviors as well. You can physically see the way that they're behaving, that it's different, that they're having clear problems, as Kara mentioned.
Is it showing up in they're being depressed and not eating?
Well,
I wouldn't say it's not they're not eating, they're more of their behavior.
for example, in captivity, they tend to just
Like bob.
like listlessly flow. So
And then usually in one spot and not move, just stay in one location for long periods of time.
Which is-
Go ahead, sorry. Which is uncommon with their normal behavior.
I have a question. Is there any science out there now that contradicts the progressive scientists? I.e., there's the film that's out. Is there the opportunity that we could weather this storm and SeaWorld as it is today would still be very viable and
well, what we've been trying to, of course there is going to be controversy, like two sides to every story, which is why at the moment we are stating progressive scientists, because there are of course scientists who haven't done, I suppose, like the research at the moment, who still believe that it's okay. But trends that we have mentioned have been leading us to believe that it is an unsustainable business model in the long term. So although you may be able to, what did you say?
Like still reap profits.
Still reap profits right now, in the long run, the trends are shifting us in opposite directions.
When they banned this in various European countries and around the world, were there protests? Were there kinds of things that drew them to take that course of action?
Yes.
Do you want to speak about India?
Yes. Well, in particular, actually in the UK in the 1990s, it was vastly decided based on public push. Actually, they were the ones who were very much behind the campaign with the nonprofit organization, and they were the ones who actually made the difference and fought for it with the government, and were the ones that actually got it passed. And this is actually seen in quite a few of the other ones, such as India.
India was listed as one of the countries. You know, India has a terrible human rights record,
Right.
but they banned the captivity of the orcas.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyhow, I'm less influenced by
Yeah.
the India thing. You listed two ethical principles that were at work here. The first one was do no harm.
Yes.
My recollection is that that's part of the Hippocratic oath. The medical profession has that as an ethical principle. Is that, and we adopted that as well in Blackstone?
Yes.
I'm a board of director on that.
Blackstone.
Is that one of our ethical principles? Do no harm?
Do no harm and treat others appropriately are like widely known ethical principles found in philosophy and religion and other,
As well as education and,
Right.
as you mentioned, medical, as well as many other.
You know, I subscribe to that as a general rule, but you know, I do harm. I start my car, and bad stuff comes out of the tailpipe. I'm doing somebody harm by starting my car. You know, we sell at SeaWorld lots of Coca-Cola, jumbo ones, big ones, and you know, there are kids who are on the verge of obesity that are drinking those things. So, I mean, you know, it's tough for us to say we're not going to do any harm and release the orcas, but yet our business model depends upon sales at those refreshment stands in order to get profits as well, in order to generate revenue. Do you have any recommendations associated with that, or is that just outside of the purview of what you study?
well, we were brought here as a consulting company to discuss the ethical issues of captivity, and there are ethical issues, like you said, in a lot of different aspects, but what we were here to speak about regards the captivity of orcas and dolphins.
Thank you.
Additionally, if you're concerned about, I suppose, revenue increases or profit loss, we believe that an investment currently would result in profits in the long run.
I got my answer. Thank you.
Oh, I've got nothing as a board member. No, but the other thing.
Well, as a board member, you mentioned it right there, profits in the long run. You know, if we do believe ethically that taking the orcas and dolphins out of captivity is the way to go, what does that transition look like? It's one thing to say it and be the first to be out in front of it. It's another to say it, but yet not do it for, is it going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? That backlash can come back on us also as a company. So what would that transition look like?
Okay, well, we believe that with the public's knowledge that there is going to be a transition from a removal of the live orca and whale shows. There's going to be a lot of public support in your favor for this. And we believe that this idea of the sanctuaries, I'm not sure if I completely understand what you're asking. Are you asking what is going to be done about the orcas? What is the time period, timeline for
Exactly.
it?
If we came out and we wanted to be first and
Sure.
make this strong ethical statement that we're taking orcas out of captivity,
Mhm.
but 5 years from now, they're still there because it's a transition that's going to take, I don't know, the sanctuaries in the ocean, or how long does that take?
Okay,
Because
well-
the public, I think, would applaud us at first,
Mhm.
but if they don't see that movement, it could turn to backlash again.
Well, we believe captive breeding is something that can be ended immediately because that's a physical act that can be stopped. As far as the sanctuaries go, there's been discussion for a transitional sea coastal sanctuary. I believe it's in the Bay of Washington, where the orcas that are in captivity will be able to live out the rest of their lives in the natural environment in an area that is monitored by veterinary care and rehabilitation people. And the scientists have been able to track the communities that the orcas belong to or were removed from. So there is possibility for reintroduction into the wild and into their communities. But didn't you know about
It's difficult to place a timeline, I suppose, on exactly how long this transition will be.
How many dolphins and orcas do we have?
I believe SeaWorld owns around 50 orcas, or
50 orcas.
50 orcas and dolphins.
We own them?
Yes.
You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to
because
own
they're
them.
not. You shouldn't treat them as property. But technically.
And that includes your other types of whales also, dolphins, whales, the white whales.
No. Oh, the belugas.
Belugas.
Yeah, and SeaWorld has belugas.
Yeah. San Antonio, yes.
So your proposal covers all of them?
Yes.
And that's going to leave a huge hole in how we do things. In the U.S., how many competitors have already done this? Of our size of SeaWorld? Anyone?
No one has
No.
done this as of yet, no. That's what we were talking about, that you would be the first ones to make the change and do the
Right.
difference.
I understand that you're talking about the sustainability of this. It's a huge step for SeaWorld to take. Especially when the evidence isn't universally accepted. And especially when it has a huge financial implication to us. The simulations, it's going to cost a lot of money for us to invest in the type of simulation you're talking about. Do you have any idea of what kind of a hit that's going to be?
We've looked at Universal, so the Transformer rides, for example, cost approximately $100 million. If you take a look at the Simpsons ride, which is another simulation ride, it was $50 million. So I mean, they say that the public reception and the numbers that have increased for the the Transformers ride was greater than the Simpsons, but of course it's investment. But I would say between 50 and 100, just based on the numbers that we're showing from here.
How many orcas have died at SeaWorld in the last 5 years in captivity? Do you know?
I want to say 2.
I don't know.
I'm not positive on that, though. I know there's at least 1, but I want to say it's 2.
And you said there have been 9 attacks, or nine issues varying from death.
There's actually been 75 incidents
75.
since the parks opened
Yes.
in 1970.
And in the last several years, has it escalated, or?
Yes, the most recent incident, as I mentioned, was the death.
But beyond that, which is obviously horrible, and we've all felt terrible about that, in the last 5 years, has there been an increase of distress that you talk about in tangible ways that have, like you mentioned OSHA.
Well, actually, the trainers have not been able to be in the water with the orcas, so therefore they're not even being put into that situation. So we can't give you a number of if it's still occurring because they're not even in the same situation.
But if the acknowledgement, I suppose, or like the notice to it has like increased recently.
Yeah, and additionally, you were asking about the deaths of the orcas. There was one orca, however, I don't believe it was in SeaWorld. I believe it was in Marineland, which is in Florida, but this shows the same kind of high stress environment. The orca actually rammed itself into the side of the pool in order to end its life. And so that's the death of an orca. And we fear for the same kind of, with this high stress environment, it's very plausible these kind of deaths are going to take place as well.
Is there any other alternative besides telling us that we should return 50 dolphins? Is there anything we could do that would mitigate this situation?
We believe that regardless of the size of the tank, keeping an orca or a dolphin in captivity is ethically problematic, so we don't believe that there is any alternative solution to this issue.
It's not necessarily even an issue about space that they need in order to thrive, but just their own fundamental nature and the fact that they require social bonds, which they are not necessarily able to have within captivity when they are not with
So
them.
why in the future don't we simply capture several from the same community of orcas? So that they've got friends.
Well, I mean, like you want to balance like both the social bonds, both the fact that they need.
They would still be in captivity, which is still something that's...
It's also highly illegal to capture orcas in the ocean from now on.
Really? How have we gotten them?
Actually,
Okay, through captive breeding. So
captive breeding, okay.
the last permit issued in order to capture a whale from the ocean was in 1989,
Right.
and the orcas are able to like multiply in captivity through this captive breeding.
Right. I
Why
would
did
think
that happen
that
in-
ending captive breeding is going to create high stress personally.
well, it's actually simulated by trainers and people who work there. It's not actually. Sorry, I'm not going into detail.
How are we doing on time?
We have 1 minute 48 seconds.
Any other questions?
Last question. If I'm adrift in the ocean and encounter an orca, and the orca is hungry, is the orca going to attack me?
There have been no incidents in the wild of orcas attacking humans.
Okay.
That have been.
Yeah.
That we.
Thank
Thank you.
We will now switch to our giving you feedback.
Is it okay to have a sip of water?
Definitely.
Sorry.
Yeah, can we sit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Breathe.
That would be great.
I'm gonna grab another notebook. Notepad for us.
Oh yeah, is that okay? To write?
Of course. There's nothing that isn't
No rules.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
No, there are rules. No orcas.
Thanks. No worries.
And by the way, when you were standing up before, did you decide consciously to stand up during all the presentations?
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Were we allowed to sit?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
That's why the chairs were there.
That's what I was wondering.
yes, you can sit.
Yeah.
No,
Especially-
whenever we present,
Especially what
always
you
do.
went through on the plane,
Well,
this
but
lady's got a strong.
I think that added to the professionalism of what you were doing. I mean, you certainly could have been professional sitting down, but I think the fact that all of you were standing,
You're all, almost all, go ahead.
May I,
we planned it.
may I ask, for the 10-minute, will there be seats as well? Do you have
Don't
to
know.
know? No? Okay, never mind.
oh,
I don't know. I said.
there, I'm not sure, but you can darn well count on the fact that if there are chairs there,
We could sit.
you can sit.
Okay.
All right, you had some things you wanted
I wanted to go last because I usually talk a lot and maybe you all will cover what I was going to talk about. So I'll go last.
I think it's a really challenging topic, and I admire your courage in taking it on. The challenge of something that has some science supporting it and some public opinion supporting it, but in spite of your good financials, they're still making money. creates a dilemma that the issue of do no harm is probably not the strongest way to persuade them. I liked a lot how you linked things back to the values of SeaWorld. I think that's really strong. I'm afraid that the directors wouldn't think that they were doing harm. And so when you say do no harm to someone who doesn't think that the same way you do, it may not have the impact that you're hoping to have. And so I'll stop and let other people.
And just to build on that, and when I think about the SeaWorld model and we talk about releasing those animals from captivity, in my mind as a director, that's, gosh, I'm thinking we need to divest ourselves of SeaWorld rather than, go another direction. Because there's going to be a lot of downtime, a lot of transition, a lot of, it's just going to be a tough time. Just this past March, stood in line an hour and a half for Soarin'. I mean, there's a lot of people that like the simulated IMAX. So I thought that was having seen it, I think that's probably a good alternative. But also I think from a director's standpoint, there's a big hill to climb there. Even, and I'll share with you, in the last week or so, revenues for the first quarter were down an additional 13% at SeaWorld, on top of the 4% from calendar year last year. So, I think that the directors may see that it's losing money so quickly. I'm just not sure what they would view as alternatives or something.
And you're talking about a huge investment.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I don't know if we mentioned, but Blackstone, who owns SeaWorld, has already made back the money that they spent to buy SeaWorld. So we just believe that this solution in the long run would be more profitable, as this is something that is phasing out in other countries and the public is backing it.
All right, I'll give a few comments. The dolphins part was not clear. This seemed to be about orcas, and if you're talking about more than orcas, I think you should. As a board of director, I would certainly want to know that. Member of the board of directors. Somebody asked a question about the timeline for the transition, and there was disagreement among you, uncertainty among you. If that was not part of your charter as the consulting firm, then just say it wasn't part of your charter and figure that out. Or that would be my recommendation. You also did disagree a few times up there when you're standing answering our question. I think you've got to put one face forward. If somebody answers the question, you got to stick with it. You sort of got to stick with it. I didn't think the legal is not as important as the ethical part. Ethical in the judging is twice as important, but I didn't think the legal argument was terribly strong. I don't know that it needs to get any stronger, but I've seen this before in a couple of the presentations that, we've got lawsuits. A lot of companies have lawsuits against them. They're not losing all of those lawsuits. Oftentimes they're not losing any of them. And I don't think SeaWorld has lost any lawsuits. They've had lawsuits, or lawsuits may be pending, may come up, but that's not a compelling legal argument. I don't think you need a compelling legal argument. I think the ethical argument is the stronger part. And the financial part was going well until the question was asked about how much it costs to do the IMAX. That's $100 million. And Universal made $27 million in the year following putting up that Transformer ride. I don't know that it was all due to the transformer ride. But if you're going to put 100 million into something, you ought to know when you're going to make your money back. That ought to be part of the business case for doing an alternative.
Which can tie back to your long-term sustainability. I mean, being upfront about the fact that there's an investment and that you won't get it back in the first year. But this is building toward a solid future, which will not have involved deaths and not involve accidents and not involve bad publicity. Has some kind. I mean, linking that together. You don't want the listener to have to connect the dots when he or she may not be following you completely. If you connect the dots for them, then it's a more compelling case. And your honesty and saying it's going to probably cost between 50 and 100 million, and you won't make it up in the first year. But this is why you should do it. Is 75, this goes back to a question. Do you know, and there's no reason for you to, but do you know whether the 75 incidents between orcas and humans in a, 40-year period is high?
I believe so.
Yes.
Well, but I mean, do you have a basis? I mean, it sounds horrible, but I mean, do you have a basis for that
Right.
being a...
Well, I would just assume because it's an unnatural thing for human beings to be with orcas, the fact that there are like incidents and deaths to show for that, I would just, otherwise I don't know how to compare that.
You never use the word assume with the board member. They want you to know.
Yeah. I can tell you, looking at the information, when I found all of those incidents, I actually went through each of them and counted them and found out what they were. And SeaWorld definitely had their name on there way more than any of the other companies. Any of the other not organizations, but I guess you could say companies that were on there.
That would be a significant issue
Okay.
to mention, because that is a concrete fact that they can't, as a board member, you can't avoid that you're getting a disproportionate share of the incidences. That really, Steve, what do you want to talk about?
Remember, this is all constructive.
Yeah, that's right.
Remember that you're smiling now, because you might not be.
It's okay. We've done this a couple times now, so
I'm scared.
I was confused. Who are you?
A consulting company,
That's
Brad.
good enough. You weren't to me, you're an advocacy group. Your bias is so obvious. Your research is so weak. I happen to agree with your point of view, but that's not what we hired you to consult with us about. Yeah. Where is the constitutional right to the fish? Where is that?
right.
Never forget that.
That's not back. Now, maybe in international agreements, and maybe Greenpeace could give you some input. But please, the worst thing is when you use the word assumption. When you did that, you lost all my credibility in that role. I wouldn't pay you guys a dime. I think you have great hearts, but you're not doing what we need. When you mentioned assumption, almost all of your stuff is, as far as I know, is not backed up nearly by enough research. I mean, if you're going to say something explosive like the constitutional rights of a fish, you best have some support for that. And also, the IMAX thing, when you first had that in your organizational, I thought that was wonderful. Really contemporary, it's going to reach the kids, really good. And then you put up a transformer. What were you thinking? You only have a little bit of time tomorrow. The Disney thing was fine. And also, I'm 67 years old. I get IMEC. If I need to know the specifics, we have technical people that are your ages that will tell us about that. Don't waste my time with a transformer. These are, especially when you've told me they've got constitutional rights. So now, transformers have constitutional rights? Fish, you're not being serious enough with business people who don't want to take your advice. See, the secret is most consultants won't take a no. We don't need you. You got to confront us. But with facts, with research, and I don't think you did a very good job.
I think there was some really good research in here. So I would disagree with you on that as it relates to the progressive science. Whether or not the board will accept it, I think you went through what the prevailing research is. You made the case. Now, it's in dispute. Whether or not you can cite, and maybe what was a little soft was that you did not, you talked about progressive science a lot. Is there a way of giving, and I've read some of that because I'm interested in this, but I don't remember reading any particulars. Can you put more weight behind it than just, because I think you're right, but I don't think you're that far from making it work as it relates to the case being made for the wisdom that's coming out and the current trend. It's not definitive. And there's reason to believe it, but can you point to anything in particular that is like the UN? Or like, there is stuff the UN is doing about this.
There also is a Declaration of Rights for citations.
That's kind of stuff.
You need to, be, when you assume you were being informal.
Okay.
You don't want to be informal about anything tomorrow.
Okay.
So I think your points are well taken, but I don't want us in generalizing to make you feel that you don't have ammunition if you shift some things and focus on that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but it sounded really discouraging. So.
Well, I told you. It's not meant to be, but I'm not done.
Okay, so.
But I guess I am done because of the budget.
Well, anything constructive, and if you want to stay a few extra minutes,
That's fine.
travel a long way. Anything that any of us have to say that's constructive to help them make, it might be helpful. What did you think the best of the material was?
Well, first, in your question and answer period, you brought out anecdotal stuff about the Monterey Bay Aquarium. You wanted to talk with us about being on the cutting edge and everything. Well, bring in, to us, that's evidence.
Monterey was good, but we wouldn't have known it if we hadn't asked the question.
So put it in, some of the Q&A stuff we talked about, put it in as research. I mean it's
your answers to
anecdotal, yeah. And then the real part of it is back where you lost me was when, because your first part, the first 3 or 4 slides about the pain and about not who, it's a who, not a what. But then you said we got asked you about the pain, and you said it was based on an assumption. You did. That's terrible. That's in real life. That's terrible. And then, well, I guess I'm getting part of this thing about you need to support your opinions, which is what they are. And you didn't hide that very well, but that's because you're ethical, honest young people. If you're going to say there is no alternative but to shut down the dolphins and the orcas, which is holding your ground, you need the better research. Because the folks at Blackstone and SeaWorld, when you start saying stuff like constitutional rights, assumptions, and the science, what was the starts with a P? Progressive science. To a lot of people, that is very political, very explosive. Back it up with some that don't let any of us think that it's something you thought off on the top of your head.
So the question,
Go ahead.
I think your answer to me wasn't great, but you already answered it earlier, and I just needed you to give back the same answer, which, if that was the best that you had, that based on scientific research and the tests about brainwaves and all of that, or however you want to say it, but you alluded to it, you
Yeah.
didn't really spell it out. The pain part was not as clear. But I think if you think about what you've already read,
Keep going on.
you could insert something, and you don't have to give long answers. But you insert something factual, because you're absolutely right. That's what's expected. You need to leave.
If you connect with a person on the issue of pain, but virtually doesn't matter what else you say. You've won your credibility. If you help me feel the Orcas pain, you got me. You got me, and you just didn't give it up. And then, but your pictures were good. You didn't, that's confusing to you?
No, I'm just thinking.
Okay, the choice is yours. This is just a suggestion. Turn it upside down, up and down, not crossways. Crossways
that's
is ambiguous.
smart. That's really smart,
It's
actually.
because you took, there's no alternative.
Yeah.
Make it, you're gonna go north to win, or you're going south to financial oblivion, and you're gonna ruin, because SeaWorld's more than just San Diego.
Yeah.
So, but let's see. I am, I think I'm being constructive.
No, I appreciate it a lot.
I just
And
have
then-
one
go ahead.
question though, because you're mentioning progressive scientists that doesn't make sense. It's a little more ambiguous. Would it make more sense if we said, because we had cited one of our researchers on the slide that it's really, really small, it's probably just hard to see. Would that make more sense if we had said like Lori Marino and her
Like the
research?
name of the scientist?
Okay, so we had it on there, it's just we probably
Yes.
should have said it instead of, I think that was
Yes.
different criticism.
That makes it human, not political.
Okay, yeah.
And this is, you might think is really like, give us a break, but
No, it's okay.
a couple of you have used the word in your transitions from one speaker to the other. Use the word gonna. Now I'm gonna have, when you go back to LA, if you can find a dictionary in the English language that has the word gonna, visit, I will buy each of you a dinner at a restaurant of your choice with a companion of your choice.
Sure.
And the better word is just say will.
Okay.
See, gonna is like mush. Will, very clear.
Sure.
And that ties sort of into your demeanors. All dressed in black, you all stood up, you all used your own names. I mean, you're together as a team. You're not a bunch of gonna people. You're either gonna be a will or not. So drop the gun.
Sure, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chris. Good to meet you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank
Good luck
you.
tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah, my final thoughts are more about the how of the presentation. I thought I too did not know that you had the opportunity to sit down. I liked the choice to stand up. I did. It was interesting, and I've seen it many times. The second time each of you got up, performed, your rate of speech was slower. You're much more relaxed. And I know when you first get up there, you're just right out of the gate. It was bang, 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 bang. You hit some of your strongest arguments early, and make sure you emphasize those and where you can, pause and really drive those points home. I felt like some of it was just go, 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 because I saw the rate and the pace slow down when each of you got up there a second time. And so, your familiarity with the information, your ability to go through that, you have that confidence. You've done it before. You said you've been through this many times. So it's just kind of that slower start out of the gate is what I would say. But those are just two things that I've seen quite often, and quite honestly deal with them myself. After you've been up there for a couple minutes, you just kind of, you kind of hit your stride. You're like, been here, done that, and it all settles in. So those are just little things.
Thank you.
I think that there are so many good things about what you did. The professionalism, the way you handled a lot of things. I think if you take out, as we've discussed, any information that when you put your head around what a board of directors is actually going to need to hear to be influenced, your whole role is influencing. And so your ability not to show your cards so clearly about, how do I say this? When you mention the UN Compact, when you mention some of these other very specific kinds of movements toward making it politically incorrect and inappropriate for what SeaWorld is doing, that's much better than starting with do no harm and treat other people well. Because the UN is making a decision for whatever the value the board wants to place on that, or any other bodies, governing bodies, any other presumably objective groups. Because you don't want the board to feel that you're a bunch of people who belong to PETA and you're trying to push an agenda. You're professionals who are bringing them information about long-term sustainability of their business, right?
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
completely.
And Dave's point really needs to be incorporated about the financials. It's great that you've got what you hid, what you did, but to compound it by saying, and as of, what did you say? As of, what was the most recent?
Just as of the first quarter, revenue went down an additional 13% year over year. Yeah, that kind of would tell the board that, hey, look, it's not going away. It was 4% last year at the end of the calendar year, and now it's another 13%, which is triple the board. Numbers like that will get the board's attention.
So you're talking sustainability and you're proving it to the point of being taken seriously on this. And then you're talking about global organizations or significant bodies that don't seem to have a political agenda that are doing what they're doing. You're creating a context where the board sees that they have to be listening to you. The transition plan, I don't know, do you think they should incorporate the fact that be honest about the fact that there's going to be a transition plan, and the reason that it's, and you can, do you have any other suggestions for what they can do before they spend the $100,000? And the breeding came out in a question. 100 million. Thank you. The breeding came out in a question, and I don't think you gave us really specific things that can be done immediately besides the breeding. Do you have any others?
Well, I feel like part of our advice was that we're not really talking to this about. We're not focusing so much.
No, I know, but I think, excuse me if I'm wrong, but are you asking, what's a way to still, bring in revenue during this time that there are going to be no whales and, this, transformation happening?
No, I'm saying that you didn't suggest, unless I missed it.
Okay.
It wasn't until the Q&A that you said that you think SeaWorld should stop breeding in captivity.
Oh,
I did
was
say
in
it, but
there.
it was very briefly mentioned. That might have been my fault, but I didn't
No,
hit it
it's
enough.
my fault then.
It was on the slide, on the first solution slide.
Okay.
It was right underneath.
What else did you have in that?
Let's continue live breeding and rebrand with IMAX simulation.
Oh, is there anything besides, is there anything else that you kicked around as something that was tangible that they could, because there's there's such an investment in this, not that it isn't a great one, but is there any other trend, as we think about transition, is there anything you could say
Thank you.
that could make, is there any other ideas you had that you just didn't put in there that you think might be appropriate based on our feedback that you're willing to entertain?
I mean, it keeps being brought up, maybe put them in bigger tanks, but that continues to still be an issue. It's not really going to help, so.
And you might say
Yeah, okay.
that this isn't something that, there's no Band-Aid solution to this. That larger tanks,
Or still captivity.
well, larger tanks are going to need a significant financial investment.
Okay.
And with OSHA saying that, the trainers can't be near, there are going to be increasing complications the larger it is, right? I mean,
Right, no.
I am
No, it makes
completely
a lot of
making this
sense.
up. But I'm just thinking about what you need to
Yeah.
say to Ken's point about being taken seriously, looking at you don't want to dwell, forget it, because in 10 minutes you're not going to be able to go in. I guess this is useful hopefully for your own thinking about what you want to have. Not that you'd say this, but you'd get into the mindset of understanding of all your great material, what is the most powerful for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
this is so helpful because we need to change everything.
Yeah, I was about to say,
The part of what you didn't emphasize, which kind of goes to Gail's question about, other than just going off the face of the earth and going out of business, which is clearly one of the options. But I didn't hear you talk a lot about the educational PowerPoint you had.
Yeah.
And education in San Diego with the high schools, et cetera, that might be a transition vehicle.
Oh, like speak about how you could use IBECC simulation to like provide a.
Yeah, instead of a destruction machine, put up some take the educational approach.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
And
great.
it can have minimal cost.
Very low.
And you're not losing in fact, you could even create engagement with, you can talk, and again, you have 10 minutes, but you can talk about the potential for partnerships within organizations that, as part of your whole thing about being a pioneer or being a
Leader.
leader, that is a very inexpensive but powerful way for them to save face.
Every school district would want to volunteer, and they would organize the teams, the students, the teachers would come and go, almost think traditional, like before your time, there was a place in Palo Verde called Marineland. Well, and also Monterey. Education, everyone wants better education. And you could partner with school districts. It would be very economical. And the word of mouth public relations would be great.
So I think that makes me feel, however you choose to use that, you're offering another alternative for how they can be successful and more sustainable.
And the education thing also has a little politics to it with the advocacy groups. Because a lot of the advocacy groups, they are stronger on their attitude than their scholarship. But because you can use education to convince people, number one, that SeaWorld is not a bad person because they put any sort of fish in a tank inside. But you're going to supplement school curriculum, you're going to, the partnership thing would be real good. And Greenpeace could not object being rational to having SeaWorld sponsor school kids to come in and watch
That's really smart.
the IMAX approach. That'll ruin their credibility. And it's
So there's a lot of really good stuff here. Even though you are taking a huge risk by presenting an idea before its time in terms of everybody accepting that dolphins have rights, you're also inviting an organization that's losing money to look at how it can be sustainable and ethical, because the future is going to be living their values. And I loved in the beginning how those were their values, right? You didn't-
Yes. No, we didn't make that.
I didn't think you did.
No, we didn't.
But that's really compelling. I mean, I think they've already gone on record as talking about, it wasn't that strong, but where is it? I have it. Where is it? Something about, does it seem unethical or improper? Is that theirs?
Yes, that's actually in their code of conduct.
Okay, is there anything else in their code of conduct that would make this issue?
That common sense.
Yeah, like you're supposed to use common sense and look at all your alternatives in order to come to the right conclusion.
That's interesting. That gives you, I mean, you're operating in the spirit of SeaWorld's tradition to look at all the alternatives when something, when common sense is challenged. And clearly, progressive science is challenging the common sense that you've operated under as a company. And we're here to present, I mean, again, it's objective. Does that sound right? So you would have had to have rethought your 30 minutes to 10 anyway.
Oh yeah.
So we're just suggesting that you
No,
take
this is
something
so helpful.
you take something you passionately believe in, no matter how tired. And has your motion sickness ended yet?
Sorry, does it look like it?
No, we were just talking about it.
no,
I was
no,
talking
You were out of the
about
room.
No, you're doing
And I'm
really
just
good.
asking if you still feel sick. Do you?
No.
No, I'm okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault.
No, you weren't revealing anything. I was just,
Your teeth are wet.
no, I was just saying that, I was asking if you were better.
Oh,
You didn't
yeah.
know that we knew, so sorry. It wasn't that you were
That was my
feeling
fault.
anything.
I'd like to share something with you to help you maybe with your confidence. I feel that by the time you all are 80 years old, that what we're talking about today will just be plain science. And that a lot of the current objection to whether global warming exists or not is going to go away. And people are going to come to understand that we can individually really destroy this world, which is what we don't get yet. And I think that's what some of you believe personally, that it could happen if we don't get it together. So I want you to be confident that your ethic is really, in my opinion, is really in the right place. Really. I mean, it
When
really
you're tired
is.
tonight, and you are thinking of how hard you've worked on this and exams and everything else you've done, understand the potential for having the mindset that this is just the beginning. This isn't about a competition right now. This is about being the voice of something you believe in so strongly that you're not going to be done with this when the 10-minute and 90
Definitely.
seconds.
No way. Definitely.
Right. So understand that the passion you feel will give you the energy you need tonight to think about how you can, and I'm glad some of us were more obnoxious than others, and I'm adding myself with you, in being, you were very measured in your response, but there was a deliberate effort to push back, because that's what you need to be thinking about, the type of people who have too much to lose to even be open to options, except that brilliantly it's in their code of conduct to be open to alternatives. And so you're walking into a space that they've inadvertently created. But think about the difficulty of how some of us asked you questions. I was watching your faces, and it doesn't feel good.
It's helpful. It's really helpful.
But think about how you think through then the group tomorrow, whatever it is, are people that need to be influenced,
Yeah.
not necessarily persuaded, because the first step is influence. Getting their influence enables your conclusion to be more persuasive. So influence them and use what you have to do that, not unsupported information, because they're hard.
Yeah.
And they may not care at all about this issue, but they may care deeply about SeaWorld going under, and they may
Right.
not want to sell it.
Right.
You could consider for tomorrow, try to make this more easy for them to start thinking about. If SeaWorld or if Blackstone, because you're really talking, at least today,
Yeah.
Blackstone. If Blackstone wants to be in existence 100 years from now, this is an issue that cannot be avoided. I mean, the idea that
Some big.
it's
Should it be
good.
100 or should it be 20 years from now? What, if it wants to live?
But should we put a timetable on that?
Maybe
I feel
not.
like we've gotten
You
in
could
trouble
also
on that
say
before.
if you are committed to being a long-term
Business.
business
Yeah.
that contributes to society, this is something that can't be avoided. Because a business, I think part of what SeaWorld's problem, maybe not Blackstone, but my impression, because I live in San Diego, my home has a view of the SeaWorld Tower. I think they're really behind the times. I mean, if I was Blackstone, I'd be considering selling SeaWorld.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that they're, I don't think that, because sometimes folks, no matter how much you want to help them, you get a sense that it is a brick wall. You don't need to fight brick walls. And at some point, because at some point you end up leaving, and the brick wall just walks away. And I could see Blackstone saying, talking with their SeaWorld people, after listening to you all, saying, listen, we were thinking you were dragging your feet, now we know you are. But they can say that privately with each other because of the impact that you had even after all of our tearing you apart.
We've kept you a long time over it, but we just want you to succeed.
No, thank you so much. It was really helpful.
You have a big dinner.
Yeah. You deserve
Oh,
it.
that's right. I have a
I'm
big one,
gonna-
right?